Can I sit there? Weenie, can I sit there? Can I sit right where you're sitting? You can sit right where I'm sitting. Let's just change spots. Have I told you today how beautiful you are? Gorgeous. Oh, yes. Look at that physique. Yes. Go for speed in the water with Arctic temperatures, but still speed, you know? I'm gonna nudge in here. Hi, kids. Welcome back to another pizza party. I'm Mrs. Pizza. This is Weenie. I think you can just see like the tiniest bit of her cheese is back there. Present and accounted for. And we are here today to talk about some upcoming new releases that are going to take us through the end of the year, because we've reached that point, friends, where the end of the year is rapidly approaching. You know, we're just picking up speed as we fly down that hill. And looking at this, it was even a little bit scary to be like, oh my gosh, that's only this many weeks away. The end of the year is only this many weeks away. But it's okay. It's okay. Time is an illusion and we're all just trying our best. So let's talk about some upcoming fantasy releases, because that's what I really focused on. I don't feel like there's a lot of new releases kind of coming at the end of the year. October is a great month for new releases, and then everything starts to kind of peter out towards the end of the year. That doesn't mean we don't have anything to talk about. So I'm here to cause problems for your TBR. Let's ruin our TBRs together, friends. We are going to do this actually in order of release date, because that makes it the easiest for me. And we're actually going to talk about one that releases in October because I missed it. It releases on October 31st. So I feel like it releases on November Eve. Technically, it releases on Halloween, but we're going to call it November Eve. And that is What the River Knows by Isabel Ibanez. This says, Bolivian Argentinian Inez Oliveira belongs to the glittering upper society of 19th century Buenos Aires. And like the rest of the world, the town is steeped in old world magic that's been largely left behind or forgotten. Inez has everything a girl might want, except for the one thing she yearns for the most, her globe-trotting parents, who frequently leave her behind. When she receives word of their tragic death, Inez inherits their massive fortune, a mysterious guardian, archaeologist, and an archaeologist in partnership with his Egyptian brother-in-law. Yearning for answers, Inez sails to Cairo, bringing her sketch pads and an ancient golden ring her father sent her for safekeeping before he died. This, I believe, largely takes place in Egypt. It sounds like it's a historical fantasy romance. It says the mummy meets Death on the Nile in this lush, immersive historical fantasy set in Egypt, filled with adventure and a rivals to lovers romance and a dangerous race. Got me with this one was the mummy meets Death on the Nile, because we all know that the mummy is one of the greatest masterpieces in cinematic history. Also, Brendan Fraser in that movie. Goals. Am I right? That is going to be released on October 31st. The next book we're going to talk about is going to be a sequel. There is a lot of sequels in this. I feel like they dumped quite a few sequels at the end of the year, but this one, I don't think they're worried about. I don't think they're worried about people being interested. They literally could have given people 24-hour notice and it would have sold out immediately. And that is going to be Iron Flames. This is the sequel to the very, very hyped and super popular Fourth Wing that everybody and their mother and their mother's cousin and their mother's cousin's next door neighbor have all read and become obsessed with. I've heard, because I have not read this, because I have enough things that I am a little bit too invested in and I don't need another obsession. I will eventually get to it. I know I will eventually get to it, but I'm just not in the right headspace to take on yet another book obsession. I'm just trying to be kind to my brain. But everybody knows what Fourth Wing is. Everybody knows that Fourth Wing was selling out left and right. There are so many special editions and so many copies. And the sequel to Fourth Wing, which is Iron Flame, releases on November 7th. This is dragons and dragon riders. And I think it's in a school setting, but with a competition trial type thing. Also steamy bits. I don't think anyone needs me to tell them what Fourth Wing is about. But just know that if you are a Fourth Wing fan, I'm probably not the first one to tell you. The sequel comes out in the beginning of November. The next book on this list is going to also be coming out on November 7th, and that is Bookshops and Bonedust by Travis Baldree. This is the second book in this series, but it is a prequel to the first book, which is Legends and Lattes, which is the story of Viv, who is an orc mercenary, and she is finally retired from the mercenary life to pursue her dream of opening up a coffee shop, and she does so in a small fantasy town. This is more about her opening the coffee shop and the trials and tribulations of kind of opening a small business in a small town. It's cozy, it's sweet, and it's definitely worth picking up. And this next book, Bookshops and Bonedust, is the prequel to that. So we are also getting Viv's story, but we are getting it before she retires, before Legends and Lattes happens. And I believe she has been injured and has to convalesce, just to rest and relax in a small town until she can return back to her job. And so she kind of gets forced to slow down for a little while, and it just happens to be at a bookshop. The first book was so stinking sweet that I think we're all just excited to see where Travis Baldree goes with the rest of this story. The next book after that also comes out on November 7th, and that is Tonight I Burn. This is the first book in a new series. It is called the Thorn Witch series, and it is by Katharine J. Adams. This is the story of Penny Albright. She is the daughter of the Thorn Coven, forced to patrol the veil between the realms of life and death, keeping it safe and whole. Each night, one witch, and only one, must cross the veil by burning at the stake. Each morning, that witch returns with the help of their magical lifeline. Failure to follow the rules of death risks them all, but one morning, Penny's favorite sister Ella doesn't return. And that night, determined to find her, Penny breaks the rules. This sounds like it is going to be an enemies to lover. We have Penny probably finding out that the world she has lived in has a lot of secrets that she is not aware of, but it seems that Penny is going to go into the realm of death, and there might even be a love triangle. I don't know. It sounds like this is the beginning of a fun new fantasy series, and I love witchy romance fantasy books. Our next book, coming out on November 21st, is Till Bard Do Us Death, and this is by Rose Black. This is, as someone put it, probably Witcher fanfic, but I'm okay with it. It says marriage isn't always sunshine and unicorns, sometimes it's monsters and necromancy. It's been almost a year since Logan, the bear, Beaker, hung up his axe and settled down with his sunshiny bard of a husband, Pie. But when Pie disappears, Logan is forced back into a world he thought he left behind. Logan quickly discovers that Pie has been blackmailed into stealing a powerful artifact capable of creating an undead army. And with the help of an old adversary and a ghost from his past, Logan sets out to rescue his husband. The cover is fun and bright and lovely. And sure, why not? Why not? I'm okay with all of this fanfic that is getting turned into actual books as long as they have a good story with it. So, why not? Our next book that is going to be coming out on November 28th is The Wit Would Not by Olivia Atwater. This is the start of a new series. Olivia Atwater did it literally is in like the worst possible place, and I keep pulling it out. Would have been smart if I thought about this before. Come to me, little one. There we go. Olivia Atwater did the Regency fairy tale series, which starts with Half a Soul. This is If Bridgerton Met the Fae. I have only read Half a Soul from this series, but I really enjoyed it. But like most romance series, you don't have to read all of the books in the series, and you don't usually necessarily have to read them in order. You pick the one you're interested in and you read it. This one, The Wit Would Not, is the start of a new series, which is the Victorian fairy tale series. In The Wit Would Not, we are introduced to a dark fairy tale set in a magical version of Victorian England. The fairies of Witchwood Manor have stolen its young lord. His governess intends to steal him back. Victorian governess Winifred Hall knows a con when she sees one, and when her bratty young charge transforms overnight into a perfectly behaved block of wood, she soon realizes that the real boy has been abducted by the fair folk. Winnie hopes to find her way to the center of the Witchwood Knot through wit and cleverness, but when all of her usual tricks fail, who will she dare to trust? This is going to be a romance, and it's going to have witches and fae, and who doesn't love that combination? Moving into December, we have our first release that we are going to talk about on December 5th, and that is A River of Golden Bones. And this is the start of another series by A.K. Mulford. This author wrote the recently popular, I believe it's The Witch's Blade and The High Mountain Court, The Rogue Crown. I've been seeing them everywhere. I haven't read them, but The River of Golden Bones, one, has an absolutely beautiful cover. And also, I kind of liked the synopsis. This is going to be the start of a romantasy trilogy. It begins with a journey of self-discovery, romance, and adventure for a young heir as they comes out of hiding to save her sister from a malicious, powerful sorceress and her dangerous sleeping curse. A sleeping curse, a fallen court, a secret twin, and it sounds like this is Sleeping Beauty adjacent. I don't know if this is going to be a retelling or it takes kind of beats from that story and makes it this own. A River Golden follows Callie's journey through treacherous wolf kingdoms, monster-filled realms, and the depths of their own heart in this thrilling romantic fantasy. I'm in. Aren't you? The next book we're going to talk about is actually a re-release. I believe this book has been picked up by a publisher, but it is being released in hardback for the first time with a slightly altered cover, and that is going to be Serpent and the Wings of Night by Carissa Broadbent. This is another book that I feel like I don't have to tell you about because you've probably already heard about it. This is a woman that is raised by vampires and entered into a vampire competition in order to gain power, agency, also enemies to lovers, romance with a competition, and vampires. It is taken social media by storm, and I know until recently was available on Kindle Unlimited, but is now being released in a hardback cover that is very similar to the independent release cover. That one's coming out on December 5th if you have to get your hands on a hardcover of that book. I've heard really good things about, I believe it's a I don't know if it's a duology or I know there's like novellas involved as well, but I've heard great things about the whole series, and I've only dipped my toe into Carissa Broadbent. And the last book we're going to talk about, which releases on December 26th, is the one that I am anticipating with every ounce of my soul, and that is Ruthless, Vows. And this is the second book in Rebecca Ross's duology that starts with Divine Rivals. I recently read Divine Rivals, and I was not okay. It was so good and absolutely heartbreaking, and it ends on a cliffhanger, and I am almost glad I waited. Sorry, there's like a hair trying to enter my mouth. I'm almost glad I waited as long as I did to read it, because now I only have to wait until the end of December to get the conclusion to this story that I literally lost sleep over last night. Like, I cannot describe to you how impacted I was. Let me back up and tell you what Divine Rivals is about so you can be just as excited about the sequel. Divine Rivals is a story of Iris, and she works at a newspaper, and she has a coworker that is her biggest rival. They are both up for the same position at this newspaper, and her competition's name is Kit Roman. Now, Kit comes from an affluent family, has had a lot of privilege in his life, and Iris has had a lot of struggles and comes from a very poor beginning. These two are vying for the same position at work, and they just kind of love to just needle each other a little bit. I should tell you a little bit of background about the story as well, because even though that's a fun beginning to a story, the real meat of this is taking place in a fantasy world where there are gods at war, and Iris's brother in the very beginning heads off to war to fight for one of the gods. So Iris is writing letters to her brother, but because she can't get them to him, he's out on the front, she doesn't know where he is, and she can't get in contact with him. She starts slipping the letters into a wardrobe, and then she starts getting letters back. Now, they're not from her brother, but they're from someone who has been receiving all of the letters she has been writing to her brother. And these two start a correspondence back and forth. I am one of those people that this is literally one of my kryptonites. The "you've got mail, we're writing letters to each other." I eat it up. I eat it for breakfast. I could sustain life on that trope. This one was so emotionally driven. We have a war going on, and even though these two are living in a fantasy world, they are both just normal people trying to survive a war. And that's where a lot of the turmoil comes from, the hardships of war, finding moments of joy within war. I cannot tell you how many times I highlighted something on my Kindle while reading this with tears in my eyes. It is currently available on Kindle Unlimited, and I think you should pick it up. If you love a heartbreaking fantasy romance and you're into the writing letters trope, this book, I'm surprised I'm not more puffy after the amount of sobbing that I did. But we obviously have a little bit of a cliffhanger, one of the reasons for my multitude of tears. And so our next book will be coming out on December 26th, the day after Christmas. Merry Christmas to anybody who celebrates it. We're getting the completion of this duology just in time for the new year. But that, kids, is some books that are coming up here to round out the year 2023, which has been a wild ride for all of us, hasn't it? I hope you heard something that had to be instantly added to your TBR. I hope that you've got some books that you're anticipating to finish finish out the year. I hope that you're reading good books out there, wherever you are. If you have some books that you are really interested in that I forgot to mention, please ruin my TBR right back. Tell me about books that I need to be aware that are coming out, because what's a TBR if it's not bloated beyond the point of ever being to complete it? If you had fun hanging out with me and the dogs, please subscribe. I hope you're reading good books out there, wherever you are, and I'll see you next time.